Well, good afternoon. As you know, we just came from a prayer vigil that we participated in at the scene of the city's latest tragedy that has occurred, the loss of 4 young lives in our city. Last night's events just compounded the senseless violence that we've been having in our community. As we have been saying, the violence is surging. It's surging on top of record levels of violence, back-to-back years, of not just homicides and murders, but non-fatal shootings, stabbings, and other aggravated assaults. We've also seen a significant surge in robberies, especially business robberies. The latest information we have is just last month in January, we had already nearly doubled the number of the average number of business robberies in our community. So as we have been saying, the violence is surging. It is not slowing. This morning, we were able to observe a press conference that was held by the mayor, the chief, our chair of public safety. I'll just tell you, I appreciate the work of Chief Taylor, Assistant Chief Bailey. They're doing an excellent job of leading our police department, keeping our officers motivated and focused on the task at hand. Make no mistake, our officers are resolved, and they will not back down from this violence. However, the comments and the lack of a plan, the lack of action items provided by the mayor and the chairman of the Public Safety Committee was alarming. Last night, the Public Safety Committee rejected an opportunity to bring subject matter experts around a table to expeditiously attack these issues of the broken system we are operating within. And by fixing those gaps, we could quickly start to interrupt the violence that is occurring in our community. Our mayor told us that this won't be solved by government alone. We agree. But here's the point. We need government action to help break some of these roadblocks down. And I said it on January the 2nd. The mayor is the quarterback, and we need him in the game. He could call an emergency meeting today around that big conference table he has on the 25th floor and bring all the relevant stakeholders to the table and demand that they fix these issues. So again, I ask the question, where's the plan? Where's the action? He said that it can't be solved by politics. It won't be a political solution. We agree, but last night in our City County Council Public Safety Committee, we saw partisan politics injected into this situation, into policing where it does not belong. We saw a party line vote that again rejected common sense solutions that were brought to the table. I want to stress this again. This is not about politics. It's about people. The key point here is we have heard a lot of people discuss a lot of ideas. The point that we tried to make last night with our Public Safety Committee is that I think there's agreement amongst all of us. We all have something to add and to contribute to this. The point we have made is let's put it all on the table. But we need a table to be there. In doing so, we also have to have priorities on these ideas. We fully support discussions on long-term solutions, but we have to stop the bleed. We train our officers, we train citizens in the community, basic first aid. The first thing you have to do is triage the situation. And you have to stop the bleed. And once you stop the bleed, then you can focus on the other issues at hand. That is the exact same model we have proposed to take with a commission and bringing stakeholders to the table. Now, today I'm joined by leaders from our community. We're here at the Fervent Prayer Church on the far east side, right around the corner from where this latest tragedy occurred. I'm pleased that we've been hosted by Pastor James Jackson of Fervent Prayer, and I thank him for his hospitality and his leadership in the community. We are also joined by Dr. Christopher Holland, who's the pastor of the Father's House Church on the southeast side of Indianapolis and has been very active in working with our law enforcement officers and helping to bridge the gaps between our police and our community. We're also joined today by Reverend Charles Harrison, who not only leads the 10-Point Coalition, but his Barnes United Methodist Church, addressing issues right in the neighborhoods on our near west side. And then we're also joined by Reverend Malachi Walker, who knows all too well the impact, the real-world impact that this senseless violence creates. And he has committed his life to standing up, bringing people together, mentoring young people, and making a difference in our city. Here are the latest numbers, and these are important to know. As of today, in the last 89 days, we have had 177 people shot, 59 people stabbed, and 51 people killed. The violence is surging. That is on top of 2 of the highest months for homicides last year, November and December. We've had now 24 homicides in the first 36 days of the new year. It's almost difficult to process these numbers. They're staggering. This means we have now had a total of 236 people shot or stabbed in our community. And I want to stress this. While a lot of focus gets placed on the shootings, we've had a dramatic increase in the number of stabbings, which further demonstrates this is not just a gun violence issue. It is a people violence issue. And as Reverend Walker made clear this morning at the prayer vigil, until we change the heads and the hearts of the folks in our neighborhoods who are engaging in these violent actions, we won't be able to make a difference. And so we have to come at this from many different angles. But we first must stop the bleed. We have made clear that the criminal justice system in our local community is broken. It is a revolving door that is taking repeat violent offenders when they are arrested for new alleged acts of violence and cycling them right back out into our neighborhoods. And our city is bearing the consequences of that. It is not the only solution, but it is the biggest solution to help interrupt the situation that we are in right now. So the mayor said that we can't do this by standing inside the walls of the city-county building. He told us that it can't be solved there. We agree. That's why we're out here in the community. That's why we're out here in the neighborhoods. I again ask, where is he? I again ask, where is the plan? Where's the action? So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Jackson, and then some of the other gentlemen are going to speak here. And then at the conclusion of that, I want to step back through the 7 solutions that we put on the table over a month ago that will help us to stop the bleed. Pastor Jackson.
Thank you, President Snyder and media, for coming out on today, and some of my colleagues who joined us here on today to talk about this issue. I was disappointed to learn that Proposal 43 did not pass in the council, and I support Proposal 43. I support a commission. You know, the Bible says that there's safety in the multitude of counselors, and I think we can extrapolate from that a principle to help us to understand that this problem can be solved through many different perspectives and using triangulation, a method to deal with it from different angles. I think the 7 solutions that President Snyder has come up with, I think there are solutions that need to be evaluated. I think there's viability to all 7 of them. The mayor has indicated that they're going to stay the course in doing the things that they have been doing. And I've heard it said from many of those who are part of the mayor's administration that if you keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, that's insanity, except when it comes to public safety. We need to look at this from a different perspective, and the 7 solutions that have been offered by President Snyder is a different perspective. Early Americans were able to be very, very successful in defending this nation by several things, and some of them were leadership, weapons, and intelligence, and courage. And I think here in Indianapolis, we have leadership, but not enough of our leaders are involved. And the weapons we have are not just bullets, but the weapons we have are programs, and the weapons we have are in our judicial system. But something else that we're missing is that's intelligence. And it's not whether people are smart or not. It's knowing what's going on in the community. And And President Snyder represents over 1,600 people who do this every day. They do public safety every day. They know what's going on in the streets. They're going into homes. They're talking to people. And so in my mind, if he gives us 7 solutions to fix the problem, these are solutions that have not just come out of his mind. These are solutions that have come from over 1,600 people that say this is the problem. This is what we're seeing every day. This is what we're dealing with. And I'm very disappointed that Chairman Robinson did not take advantage of an opportunity to have a supplementary program. This is not a replacement program. The commission was never intended to be a replacement program. It would be supplementary to what the Public Safety Committee has been doing over the years. But understand that if over the past several years and here recently, we still have people dying in the streets. When we were doing the prayer vigil that was organized by Malachi Walker, officers were chasing a robbery suspect that almost intersected the prayer vigil. We have a public safety crisis on our hands. Lawlessness has gripped the city. We did wrap our arms around the families, some of the family who are connected to the family out there today. And now it's time to get down to business right away. Because we can't wait until tomorrow. We can't wait until next month or next year. Somebody else could die tonight. It could be someone else's child. We're at war with lawlessness, and the intelligence that we're receiving from beat officers on the street is that the problem is not getting better, it's getting worse. I think the 7 solutions that President Snyder have come up with are worth sitting down at the table, whether it's on the 25th floor or somewhere in the city, with law enforcement, representation, faith community, and others, and hashing over those 7 solutions to test their viability. And also, as I've said in the past and will continue to say, with those 7 solutions and the work of the 10-Point Coalition, as well as all the other folks who are working in the community, will help solve our problem. Incidentally, and I'll put my pastor's hat on here, the number 7 is God's number for perfection, and the number 10 is God's number for deliverance. With those 7 solutions and the 10-Point Coalition, we can be delivered from lawlessness in Indianapolis.
Thank you. First of all, let me say I conducted the prayer vigil over at the site of the 4 homicides, and as I was just lie down last night, probably about 11:15, when I saw they did a special report came on and said that there's been 4 homicides that took place, and then gave the address. And the first thing I said to myself, I hope this is not real. And I woke up this morning, absolutely, it's real. And immediately I said to myself, well, I strongly believe that I must call on the saints. So I called a few pastors up and said, could you stand along with me as I go over and conduct a prayer? Now, as I start thinking, first of all, I got word, 24 homicides. Then of the 24 homicides, 16 of them were male. Now, that's what I do. I work primarily with males. And to hear that, it doubly breaks my heart. And I'm a firm believer of working with whatever is put in place, and as I look at it, and if it's designed to really address the issues that we face in our community, I'm all for it. But primarily, mostly, I'm all for it if it affects our young people, because I work with young people and have been doing it all my life, and I will continue to do it. But right now, we have a problem, and I'm staying behind in front of these, these men behind me, and hear about the resolution last night from the council that didn't pass, and all these things are coming now, and it continually to disturbs me. So I'm just going to stand with them And whatever needs to be done, I'm going to be there because I'm here as an advocate for our young people, and I'm going to continue to do that. We have to save our children. Our children is not only our future, but our now. And we have to do what it takes to really save them. Thank you so much.
And finally, let me share that we are all here because we all love Indianapolis, and we are all deeply concerned about the surging violence. This has not occurred over 1 year. We have seen a surge in violence in this city really over the last 8 years, and particularly in the last 5 years. 4 of those 5 years, we have broken criminal homicide records. Last year, we did not break a criminal homicide record in 2019, but we had 524 non-fatal shootings. We were very fortunate that we didn't break another criminal homicide record. And as we have entered 2020, we're now at a pace that we're going to exceed all of the previous criminal homicide records if we don't slow this violence down. We're not here because we are against anyone. I believe that everybody cares. The mayor cares, the city county council cares, FOP cares, IMPD cares, the prosecutor, the sheriff, residents from neighborhoods all across this city, and community groups like 10 Point. But the reality is we all have different opinions on how we're going to achieve a safer city. I believe and I hope that we can all come together with our different viewpoints and find common ground. There is no one group, there is no one agency, there is no one silver bullet that can solve this surging violence issue. It's going to take all of us working together as the village. I'm not a part of law enforcement, but if our law enforcement community says to us that catch and release is a problem, then I'm willing to stand with them to take a look at it to see if that is true, and if it is true, how can we fix this? We're going to have to do it together, and I wanted Rick Snyder and IMPD officers to know that we were concerned about their concerns, and I hope that somehow that we can reconsider the proposal that was presented last night and in some way put some kind of commission together to try to address the concern of catch and release and the lack of resources in many of these neighborhoods to help us deal with the root causes that's leading to so much of this senseless violence. Thank you.
With that, we've talked about the 7 solutions. I just want to briefly go back over those so that you have that information. The point on this is that these are 7 solutions from a public safety perspective. These are our policing professionals that have identified these issues that they're seeing in the day-to-day function of their responsibilities. Their responsibilities that translated into a 78% increase in juvenile murders last year. The repeat of 3 out of every 4 murder victims being African American. And of those, the vast majority were African American males, young African American males. So with that, our 7 solutions are very simple, but they are significant. First, we must hear our local leaders say that they're outraged by the violence and say that it's unacceptable. For the first time, in direct response to actual violence that was occurring, we heard the mayor this morning say that this was unacceptable. So we welcome that. But we want to hear it from our chair of public safety, our sheriff, our prosecutor, all these other folks that said we needed to reject the proposal that was on the table last night. Second, we must establish some type of a commission, a coalition, a group, a working group, whatever you want to call it, to study our local criminal justice outcomes and to provide a review of all the issues that are contributing to a revolving door of justice in our community. And we're talking specifically for the repeat convicted violent offenders. We are not talking about zero tolerance. We are not talking about mass incarceration. We are not arguing cash bail bond systems. We are talking about the very simple but significant step of when you have someone who has a demonstrated history of violence through convictions after due process, and they are alleged to reoffend again, they should just not automatically get cycled right back into our community. Third, we should have every arrestee that's taken downtown reviewed by a judge. That is not occurring right now. We have a computer system that is not catching the criminal conviction histories to interrupt these repeat offenders. That must occur. Fourth, we must publicly address the lack of accountability for violators in our local juvenile justice system. The mayor did speak to that this morning and said that they are working on a plan to tackle that issue and restructure our juvenile justice system. Again, bring everyone to the table to contribute to that plan. And let's get it going. Fifth, we call upon the governor and the state house. This last month, we've spent a considerable amount of time over there working with them to address the issues of House Enrolled Act 1006 and the state mandates that require our local jails to house state prisoners. It's important for Marion County taxpayers to know this. On average, every day, 350 state prisoners, convicted felons, are taking up beds in our local jail, creating an artificial overcrowding issue. Worse yet, the state doesn't pay us the full price that it costs to house the prisoners, their prisoners. So last year alone, in 2019, Marion County taxpayers supplemented the Indiana Department of Corrections to the tune of nearly $1 million housing these prisoners. Housing their prisoners so that we're then forced to release our local arrestees so that they can go back out and re-victimize our neighborhoods. Sixth, we need to establish a public database to track the criminal histories, focusing on prior criminal convictions and dispositions for those who are both victims and suspects when we identify them in homicides, non-fatal shootings, stabbings, and other aggravated assaults. People say, why do that? The violence has already occurred. Well, what you're going to see is often one or both of the parties should not have been there for the act of violence to have occurred if they had been held accountable according to the sentencing requirements for their acts of violence. That tells you, when you see that latest act of violence was preventable. And if we work backwards off of that, we can identify how to close those gaps. And then seventh, and I would suggest to you, most importantly, a group could come together to study and analyze the disproportionality of African Americans related to murders, but also related to our infant, toddler, and maternal mortality rates. Indianapolis has consistently been in the top levels for that issue. Just last year we had the first decrease in our history, yet we remain one of the top ones. We have to address these issues. Every life matters, and we all play a role. What questions do you guys have?
Rick, do you and your partners in this failed endeavor last night, do you need the council and the mayor's approval to proceed with this, or do you guys establish your own freestanding citizens commission to go out and start working on this, whether the Democrats on the council like it or not?
Yeah, I think, we saw politics injected into the discussion last night. We had politicians who rejected common sense solutions. Last night I was asked at the murder scene, what do our residents and officers need to do if the politicians aren't going to do something? I said we need to rise up. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to rise up, stand together, and that's why today, in consultation with the gentleman that you see here with me, we are announcing that we will move forward with establishing a citizens coalition on criminal justice outcomes. We will tackle these issues because the urgency is of the matter. And so I encourage those in our community who wants to contribute to the solutions and to moving our city forward to reach out to us. We will be putting forward information in the very near future on the first date, time, and location for such a gathering.
So a citizens coalition wanting to bring together community-based leaders to start off with like what, like listening session just to
I think the biggest thing is, I think what's been made clear from everybody you've heard from as of late, we all know what the problems are. These gentlemen know what's going on in the neighborhoods. Our police officers know. Our elected leaders say they know. The numbers speak for themselves, right? So let's start talking about the solutions. We've been problem-oriented. That's great. Now let's be solutions-focused. And if we want to talk about long-term solutions which are needed, which we fully support, if we want to talk about poverty, education, living wages, all these other things, throw them on the table, but we have to have the table there. But what we want to make clear is you have to stop the bleed first. These gaps in the criminal justice system, if we fill them, can interrupt the cycle of the repeat offenders re-victimizing our community. The other thing is that a coalition, a commission, the whole point of the commission was to have a nonpartisan body immediately working on this issue, not waiting for the next public safety committee meeting, right? Not waiting to bring one group up in front of a committee and then a month later another group and a month later another group. Get them all around the table right now. Again, I call upon the mayor. You can do it today. What are we waiting for? So therefore, we'll do it. We'll move forward.
So coalition, you have 4 ministers here, so is each minister committing to hosting a community meeting in their part of town, in their church? Specifically, how are you going to do this?
You want to talk about that, please?
That's a great question. It's not necessarily hosting the meeting in a church. Wherever we can meet, we will meet. All the people that you see up here have been engaged in this process for several decades. Recently, we have wanted to work with the present administration. And I would have to tell you, working with this administration is very difficult. The mayor says we are one city. I think that refers to one party. And if you're on the outside of that, then you just don't get the kind of support or access that you need. I think we have a mayor that says one thing and does something else. I've always said that he is a master at smoke and mirrors. And it's very unfortunate and it's very frustrating. He reduced our problem down to 30 seconds passionately during his press conference. That in 30 seconds he was able to solve the whole problem. Now, if you look at it from the perspective of how the problem has been approached over the last 30 years with the Peterson plan, with the Ballard plan, those solutions, all of those documents, you can say, well, I can answer this in 30 seconds. Here are the problems. But I didn't hear the mayor or anybody who was part of that press conference today refer to the 7 solutions that President Snyder and 1,600 officers have said, hey, these are the issues that are going on. Long-term solutions, poverty, sickness, disease, all that sort of thing, I think we need to be engaged in that. But there are things that can be taken care of and dealt with immediately, like was done in the 90s or during the Ballard years. I don't understand why the present administration has not asked living people who still live in Indianapolis, to come to the table and ask the question, how did you get homicides trending under 100 for 4 years? I have not heard about that meeting. It would seem to me logical. It would seem to me the intelligent thing to do to go gather up those people and say, show me how you did that. But pride comes before a great fall. I'm disappointed with Chairman Robinson, who believes that he has done a great job. I think if you look at his numbers, no, you haven't done a great job. You have to acknowledge the fact that you have failed, and you have to get the help of other people. And unfortunately, we're dealing with an administration, and we're dealing with the chairman of public safety who's too proud to reach out to other people who are not just talking about it. I'm talking about people who know what they're talking about. On the one hand, you have people who say, well, you know, maybe we can get this done, but we have people who know what they're talking about. So meeting in churches, meeting in cafes, meeting in community centers, meeting in convention centers, meeting wherever we can, with everybody we can, to talk about not just solutions. Now, here's one of the things I think people need to understand. We have solutions. We have decades of solutions. And we have 7 more solutions to add to those solutions. And in prayer, one of the things God told me, it's implementation. How do you implement the solutions? The previous administration found a way to implement the solutions, and as a result, homicides were trending under 100. Crime was trending downward. As a result of an administration change, I believe that Mayor Hogshead really wants to fix the problem. At heart, he's a law enforcement officer. At heart, at the core, he's a law enforcement officer. But he is also an elected official. He is mayor of the city, which I don't understand why he would not want to partner with the FOP, with President Snyder, who endorsed him to be mayor, to fix this problem. And until he finds humility in his heart, and until Chairman Robinson finds humility in his heart, it's going to be difficult to fix the problem. However, as was said by President Snyder, we're moving forward. Can't wait on people. We've tried to engage them. We've tried to ask them to help us. But as Willie Frank Middlebrook used to say, we're going to have to help ourselves.
Rick, are you going to have to wrangle an invitation from the council? Because I can see you working on a 2-tier process. One, your own operation here.
Yeah.
Maybe not give up on the official people that have the problem. Like, so, I mean, do you have to wrangle an invitation from the current structure to get an invite to the table? And if you do, besides the 7, is there anything from the Republican proposal last night today? You know, you defeated the commission on idea, but there's still a couple of good ideas here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point, right? Let's call it whatever they want. I'm good with that. You know, check our egos at the door and let's get something done here. People's lives are depending upon it. It's what we're called to do. In addition to that, whether we like it or not, it will invariably take government action to get these solutions done. Us standing here, we can't force the judges to reanalyze how they're doing release of arrestees who have significant prior criminal conviction histories. We have recent stories from you folks, media, reporting on domestic violence victims who the alleged perpetrator has documented prior histories of violence, including uses of guns illegally. And we have judges that are looking at those records and then still releasing those folks on a $500 bond and saying we're going to put them on GPS monitoring. A GPS monitoring system is completely overloaded. They've already publicly acknowledged that they do not drug test or even know when those on pretrial release are rearrested. Think about this. They say that under our system, we rely upon the offender to tell us if they've been rearrested. And their quote was, sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. No kidding. And when it doesn't, and then they victimize somebody else, who has culpability in that? We have over 4,300 people on GPS electronic monitored release in our city. It's the highest in the country. We had folks that researched this, looked at LA County, Los Angeles County, 10 times the size we are, population of 10.1 million. We have 4,300 on electronic monitoring. They have 217. Now, no one can look at that and say that makes any sense. And people say, well, by releasing people on low cash bonds and putting them on the GPS monitoring system, that is better because bond systems negatively impact the poor and especially people of color. I don't dispute that. What I do point out, though, is even under that system, who has to pay for the electronic monitoring? Nobody talks about that. It's the offender who pays $14 a day to be on that monitored release. That's $420 a month. Add that up over the months they're on that release. Oftentimes it's multiple more than what the original bond would have been. So it doesn't make any sense to say that we're doing it because of poverty, financial issues, all those things. In fact, you're actually putting more financial stress on these folks. And nobody can explain why we're doing it. Why we're doing it.
Final question, Pastor Harrison. I know you talked about focusing your efforts away from 42 and close up towards 43rd. The mail offer was 10 points. What we've been doing out there, and in the wake of last night's incident, what do you see your role over the next few days?
Well, it's challenging at this point because the grant that we had for this area ended, so we don't have people on the street as many hours as we did in the past, which was about 15 to 20 hours. It's now down to about 5 hours, so the impact is not as great. We're going to try to use those 5 hours to be as helpful as we can to other organizations that are already in the neighborhood and working with the city and the peacemakers to try to target those that are most at risk and most vulnerable to either being a suspect or a victim of violence. Certainly we're going to spend a lot of time in that complex and working with families and individuals during this very difficult time. And my goal is to get more money so that we can increase the capacity for the 10-point teams to be out longer hours like they were a year ago, to 15 to 20 hours, which really made an impact, which allowed them to be on the streets about 5 days a week rather than 2 days a week.
So you've now done an operation when you do 5 hours a week, 5 hours a day?
5 hours a week, not a day. We used to do 20 a week, but now we're down to 5.
One last thing I wanted to share is that I don't want this to get lost in the shuffle. Our law enforcement officers, especially the spouses that were in the Public Safety Committee last night, that came to speak upon on behalf of their husbands and wives who are out here in the streets risking their lives right now, the citizens who stood shoulder to shoulder and said, pass this, get this commission going, and they rejected it. Those politicians made clear they have the solutions, they have the plan, and they said the time for study and discussion is over, it's all about action. So I'm going to say it again. Where's the plan? Where's the action? And where's our leaders? And so I look forward to seeing it today. I was hopeful to see it this morning, and it was made clear they have no plan. So I look forward to seeing it this afternoon, because we're all relying and depending upon that. They took it, they own it. Now we are going to move forward, but we look forward to seeing that plan and their action. Thank you, guys.